You know, we have a government that kicks out a Jewish cabinet minister, Selena Robinson, to appease a mob who last night was burning flags in front of the art gallery. I find that incredibly offensive. In British Columbia, we want to make sure we build that positive opportunity for people to have that future.
We should talk about, and maybe people can weigh in the Rumble chats as well. Who do we think won the debate? I mean, I'll start with you, Sheila. I don't know. I tried to watch it in a way where, you know, I'm taking my own thoughts out to see who won. And I almost feel like it's a tie. Like, I don't know that there was a clear winner if you look at it that way.
I don't know. If you watch with the sound off and you read the body language,
Yes.
John Rustad won.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
David Eby just came across like a weirdo. Like I said, like a Tim Walz. It was just weird expressions on his face, couldn't stand still, going back and forth. Instead of looking at the camera with the neutral expression. If you watch it with the sound off, he completely lost. John Rustad won. I forget the lady's name, which, and I'm a close
Sonia
political watcher,
Furstenau.
but that's how I know she lost.
Yes,
because
she
I don't
definitely
even
lost.
remember her name.
Yeah.
And I appreciate how Rustad remained calm. And he never got sidetracked. He didn't get baited in to certain things that you could tell David Eby was really sort of trying to drag him off message.
When we were all rolling up our sleeves to get vaccines to protect vulnerable seniors from COVID-19, when Bonnie Henry was working night and day to keep us safe during the pandemic, you know, John Rustad and his candidates were providing donations to people who were protesting outside of hospitals, anti-vax convoy members. He's still an anti-vaxxer. He appeared in front of a group of people that called the so-called, you called it the so-called COVID vaccine. You said you wish you'd never been vaccinated.
That's just not true.
And then when someone said, do you think that public health professionals should be tried like Nazi war criminals? You said, well, we wouldn't do that in BC, but we would support an international effort to do that, John. It's embarrassing. You know, I wouldn't fire Bonnie Henry. I'm trying to hire you and your family a family doctor. We've connected 250,000 people to family doctors. We've got so much more to do. But if you think that we'll be safer in our province with someone who doesn't believe that vaccines are in charge of things?
Thank you very much, Sachi. The reality is I'm triple vaccinated. The reality is in British Columbia, I also promoted and supported people getting vaccines, especially for seniors. Especially for seniors in our communities. I was supportive of that. However, I am not anti-vax, I am anti-mandate. I believe that people should have choice. It shouldn't be thrust upon them and forced upon them or coerced to be able to take a vaccine.
You never know which John Rustad's going to show up. When he's talking to supporters, he says, I regret getting the vaccine tonight. Now he's proud to be
I'll explain that to you if you like.
You never know.
I don't expect that these two are door knocking, but I am.
And he remained like laser focused on affordability, crime, opioids, all the healthcare system that is failing, all the things the NDP have been in charge of for the last 7 years. He never got sidetracked from those issues, which I thought meant that he won the debate.
Look at what's going on in British Columbia today. There are people dying on the streets. There are people dying on the streets, whether it's from crime or whether it's drugs. I was on my way over here, and at the corner of Robson and Hornby, there was an individual who died. And there was emergency people rushing. This person died from an overdose. This is the British Columbia that David Eby has created. Tent cities are growing all over the place. We have a crisis in healthcare. We've got a crisis in affordability. We've got a crisis in housing. What we need is a common sense plan that is going to be able to deliver for people in this province. British Columbia has all the potential you could ever want. We have all the resources that we could ever want. We've got a well-trained, well-educated population, but we're hopelessly managed. What's needed in British Columbia is a government that will tackle these issues, that will make sure we get government out of the way, and that we make sure that people can once again be proud to be British Columbia and to be able to build a future here.
And I like that when Eby was looking at him, almost breathing down his neck, he didn't make eye contact with Eby even once. I'm sure he must have felt that Eby was doing
That was
that.
weird.
When he would be, when he was getting interrupted by Eby, he also never broke his speech, which was interesting. He just kind of, like you said, just calmly kept talking. And that was interesting as well. Eby, on the other hand, again, if you were someone who's just tuning in, you don't really follow much and you don't know who's who much about the other people. I mean, Eby, some say he's unelected the way he even got in. He was just kind of chosen, wasn't much competition. He uses the same words, those emotional words. We're going to keep people safe and all of these things that really try to feed with the person's heart. But I think that type of rhetoric has been so used and abused that a lot of people are like, we've heard this before.
It's how we got Justin Trudeau. It's how we got Justin Trudeau. He was Mr. I'm going to grow the economy from the heart outward. He literally said that. And I don't know why the soccer moms in Ontario were like, well, that's the guy for us. And that's how we got stuck with him for 9 years.
People have died waiting in emergency rooms. There was a lady. She was in labor. She went into the hospital, and she miscarried in the washroom and sat there covered in blood, waiting for hours for services in an emergency room. That is David Eby's healthcare in BC. And quite frankly, it really tears me apart and it makes me upset. We need to be able to make sure that we're retaining our doctors, that we're bringing back the healthcare workers that were let go. We need to make sure we have a model in this province where doctors want to stay here and work, where people can come in and we can unleash the full potential of family doctors. We need to be able to make sure we deal with training and the people coming into our province. There's so much that needs to be done on healthcare, and it's not happening under David Eby.
Absolutely. But Rustad, on the contrast, did a lot of personal stories. He talked about not being able to have kids. That makes him likable and relatable. He talked about 3 of his family members passing away in the year of 2020 after, you know what, but he talked about that. And he also talked about the personal stories of, the boy. Well, I guess he was 28 years old when he passed away, but the struggle that happened. So that helped Rustad on that way.
But I'll tell you the story of Christian, who was a 13-year-old, and when he was first addicted and not told by his parents did everything they possibly could to try to get help for him. He eventually passed away when he was 28. And when I talked to the mom said, I asked the government to try to help me and they refused. They didn't even answer the phone.
But Eby, I thought his best moment was when he really was pressing, I don't know why I'm holding my lip gloss opposite though. He really was pressing John Rustad to say, how are you going to make your promises happen? And I agree with Rustad. We are a resource-rich province, and that has been neglected severely. So we do have to put these things in place to be more prosperous and to be able to offer to people. But I think that the moment where Eby kept pressing him on him was his best moment in particular.
When we look at British Columbia and we look at First Nations in British Columbia, they've been held back economically for far too long. We need to be able to unleash their potential. We need to make sure that they can fully participate in the economy. We make sure that economic reconciliation can be a reality. And I've witnessed this firsthand as I signed 435 agreements with First Nations. I witnessed this firsthand when I see the difference it makes to people on the ground and to what's going on in our province. And so my perspective on this, and our Conservative Party looks at British Columbia, working with First Nations, lifting them up, making sure that we can help fulfill those opportunities for them. And when there is legislation in place that creates friction between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, I think that's wrong. That is not reconciliation. So we need to be able to move beyond that. When you look at the debate in the UN on the United Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, we want to bring that to life in terms of how we work with First Nations. You look at the debate, you look at the intention, that's how we will utilize UNDRIP in British Columbia. DRIPPER legislation, the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People Act, has caused friction in this province, and it needs to be replaced with what makes sense so that we are not creating the divisions amongst people, but instead we're making sure that both Indigenous and non-Indigenous life have the opportunity to be able to fully participate and benefit from a growing and expanding economy.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say neglected. I would say that your resource-based economy has been absolutely kneecapped and restrained by NDP policies.